It's been almost a year since I recorded this video here. I hadn't seen a doctor for several years, so I'd gone to see my wife's doctor because the warranty on my right hip has basically expired, and I needed a referral to an orthopedist. I've known for quite a while that I was headed towards a hip replacement somewhere down the road, but unfortunately, my hip has gotten worse over the past couple of years, and I needed to take some action. So about a year ago, during this first visit with this new doctor, they drew some baseline lab work, and lo and behold, a few days later, I checked the online patient portal and I found that my fasting blood glucose was 113, and my new doctor left a note in the portal saying, "Hey Richard, you're pre-diabetic." And as much as I resented her so quickly labeling me as pre-diabetic, in reality, I knew that my weight was creeping up and I knew I wasn't in my best health. We've been traveling quite a bit and I was out of my usual exercise routine. And honestly, I wasn't paying close attention to my diet as I typically would. In fact, I was letting what I call life punctuations creep in. And those punctuations, unexpected trips, friends visiting Austin for the weekend, drinking more frequently, eating out more often, it all began to affect my weight and my health. So I made some promises to myself after that doctor's appointment that I was going to change a few things and commit to some routines to get me back to a healthier place. So in that video, I talked about 7 strategies I was going to implement to help me lose weight and get back to my fitness baseline. And here's what I talked about doing. Number 1, implementing time-restricted eating or intermittent fasting and limiting my meals to no more than 2 per day. The fact is, I know that I just don't need as many calories now in comparison to when I was younger. Number 2, I plan to continue some type of aerobic exercise every day, getting in at least a couple of miles walking with my wife or hitting the treadmill, all before my first meal of the day. Number 3, I talked about limiting my use of alcohol, as well as number 4, avoiding drinking my calories in any form or fashion and choosing water more often than not. Number 5, I also plan to continue focusing on strength training and making sure I was targeting each of my major muscle groups on a weekly basis. And number 6, from a dietary standpoint, my plan was to continue eating basically a keto or carnivore diet and to eliminate unnecessary, unhealthy forms of carbohydrate. And number 7, lastly, I plan to implement the aid of a CGM or a continuous glucose monitor to help me track foods that were having the greatest impact on my blood sugar. So how did I do? Well, I did pretty well, especially on the first 6 strategies, and I actually lost some weight. In fact, the first 6 on my list, I was pretty consistent following the plan, but I dragged my feet on number 7, getting the continuous glucose monitor. But a few weeks back, I finally pulled the trigger and I ordered the monitor and it came in the mail last week. The glucose sensor I'll be using is the Dexcom G7 and I'm excited to try it out. The first thing I had to do was download the Dexcom G7 app onto my phone. The app will allow me to monitor my blood glucose in real time. Here's what the application device looks like. Applying the sensor and the transmitter is relatively straightforward. It's easy to apply. Most people report that it's painless to put on. I've also helped my wife with hers a few times, so I'm familiar with the process, and she says she doesn't feel any pain or discomfort putting the sensor in place. They recommend that you apply the sensor to the back of your arm after cleaning the skin with alcohol and then press the applicator device firmly against the skin. You then push a button which releases a spring mechanism that attaches the sensor to your arm. There's a tiny filament which pierces the skin and remains in contact with your blood for the duration of time that you wear the device, and it delivers real-time feedback about your blood glucose level to the Dexcom app on your phone. The sensor is then covered with one of these adhesive skin patches to protect the device and keep it in place, especially since over the course of 10 days, I'll be working out, showering, working in the ER, etc. My wife has been using these skin grip patches. They come 22 a pack, so I'll be trying some of hers as well. After 10 days, you remove the sensor and apply a new one. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this feedback can help me optimize my diet going forward. Because as my hip has gotten worse, dialing in my diet has become even more important. I'm currently on schedule for a total hip replacement in a couple of months, and I'll be posting more videos about that. But my hip pain has finally reached a point where it's impacted the length of time I can spend spend walking or doing aerobic exercise, so paying closer attention to the foods that impact my weight is even more of a priority to me now. Which brings me to an important point that I want to share with you. I grew up running track and playing football in high school, and though I didn't go on to play sports in college, I've always maintained the identity in my head and in my heart that I'm an athlete, and I've just always felt that way. And except for a few periods of time as an adult where crazy things were happening in my life, or I just got super busy, such as during my medical residency training, I've always placed a premium on maintaining my fitness. Consequently, I've always had some type of ongoing exercise plan that included cardiovascular or aerobic exercise, as well as a steady program of strength training, because I've always associated being fit with feeling good and being healthy. And to be honest with you, even hitting my 60s and being consciously aware of my increasing chronologic age, I've never actually felt like I was getting old. And I believe that's a big part of the value of maintaining your fitness through every decade of your life. As we go through life, we're all presented with situations that challenge us through a variety of different ways. And suddenly for me, that's the realization that if I want to maintain my highest level of fitness possible for me, it means it's finally time to get my hip replacement done. I know it's not going to magically get better, and I can't ignore it any longer. I've always talked to my patients about the importance of working around various injuries from an exercise standpoint, modifying your approach if necessary, so that you don't have to toss your exercise routine out the window just because you have a particular injury that you've got to attend to for a period of time. But it's also important to address the physical issues that you have going on so that they don't leave you with a disability that happens to be more difficult to overcome. Consequently, if you've been putting something off that you know in your heart needs to be addressed, make sure you go see your doctor and get a checkup so you can at least have a plan of attack going forward to be able to maintain your best health and fitness. You've probably heard the saying that a body in motion stays in motion. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. It's very easy to become sedentary and less active as the years go by and to allow the body to become weak and broken down without a fight. I don't want that for me, and I don't want it for you either. I'm going to keep you posted about how things go with the Dexcom G7 glucose monitor, as well as doing some videos as I prepare to get my new hip this summer. If you're new to the channel, I hope you'll stick around and subscribe. Please share the channel with someone you feel would benefit from watching these videos. All the best, and I will see you in the next video.